Hey, welcome back. Glad you could join me again. For all of you that watched my first video, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So for those of you that don't know, my name is Robert. I am trying to document my journey with my faith, and I figured I'd bring you guys all along. So my first episode, you guys will find out a little bit more about me and my testimony. And I recommend going to check that one out. So if you want, go ahead and pause this, go check out the previous one, and then come on back. Today, I'm going to talk about where I started in my journey, reading through the Word, and I think the best place to start out is usually going to be in the Gospels. That's what I did. Started off in the Gospels, through Matthew, going from there. And I figured I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about, what I read, what I thought, where I'm currently thinking, how I interpret things. And then, I'll probably bring in some information from other sources, that I've learned from as well. So let's get started. So, Matthew, the first thing you're going to learn about Matthew, the book of Matthew, is the genealogy of Jesus. I think this is interesting. It's really a bunch of names that I had a hard time pronouncing when I first started doing this. So don't feel like you have to figure it all out. But I think this is really cool, and I think it's something that I'm probably going to find myself coming back to the more I learn about some of these individuals throughout the Word. So, but Matthew starts off with the genealogy, and that's not the only place you're going to see genealogy in the Bible, but Matthew is I think one of the most thorough genealogies that you see. So that's pretty cool. Matthew definitely starts with there, but one of the big things with the book of Matthew is you see little bits and pieces of a few things. So you see, early on, you see how Mary and Joseph and how that transpired as far as learning about having Jesus and stuff like that. But then it goes into more in-depth, more thorough stuff. So you go from the first couple chapters talking about that and them escaping to Egypt and stuff like that. And then it goes on to where you get into chapter 3, where it starts talking about John the Baptist. By the way, I'm looking at my Bible here, and I got some notes over on the side here. So if you see me looking down or around, it's probably what I'm doing. So in Matthew 3, it talks about John the Baptist, and I think John the Baptist is one of the individuals that you read about in the Bible that's kind of very, very important and lays the groundwork for a few different things. So this is the first time that, of course, since I started here, and seeing the beginning of someone really testifying that the Messiah is coming and preparing the way for Jesus. So I know I've from my experience from other people and what I have read in the Old Testament, you do see talks about the prophecy of Jesus coming, the Messiah, and the coming Messiah. But I think John the Baptist is the first time you kind of start reading about how soon and what the Messiah is going to look like. So it goes on from there. You read through John the Baptist, the baptism of Jesus, and then a very, very important part, I think, of Matthew is being tested in the wilderness, which is under Matthew 4, where it starts talking about the wilderness, and I think this is an important part for us to kind of learn from and read from, because a lot of the trials and tribulations you go through are kind of similar to the wilderness, and it's where you really have to lean in on your faith with God and knowing that God is with you and that He's going to come through. And you kind of see that, and you see in, Matthew 4, where Jesus answers, when, he's fasting in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, and he's being tempted, and he answers, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. So this is where you kind of first get the context that, your life should be based on God's word, which, this is where God's word is, and so this is where you need to come to kind of learn how to really get through that wilderness and stuff like that. So this was a very important part to me. I actually highlighted that section in here. So and then it goes through the wilderness, and then it goes into when Jesus first started preaching. And I think this is one of the areas that I know I definitely appreciate about the Bible, and I know a lot of people do. And it's one of my favorite parts about the Bible is when you come to Matthew 5, where it's the Sermon on the Mount. So for those of you that don't know, this is where Jesus prayed on a mountainside, and this is where he kind of lays the groundwork for looking at God's law or the Ten Commandments, and really saying it's not just about the law, it's about your heart posture towards the law. So I think that's one of the great things about the Sermon on the Mount, is it really kind of it does that for us. So you'll see that through the Sermon on the Mount. And so, some of the things that it does is Jesus kind of breaks down the different things. So like one of the first ones that you kind of see is where he talks about murder, and one of the Ten Commandments is thou shalt not murder, and it's the law part from the Old Testament that we see a lot of apologists kind of exclaiming where we get morals from, the morals we get from the Ten Commandments. But Jesus kind of breaks it down a little bit further, where Jesus doesn't only say that murdering is wrong. He basically says like having hatred towards one another, or it says here under Matthew 5:22, but I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. So just having anger or angst towards another person, a brother or sister, like that alone can be considered as strong as murder. So and really what it is here is it's talking about your heart posture towards others, right? So one of the other areas that kind of digs into it is talking about adultery, where Matthew 5:27, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery, but I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery. So just the intent of looking at someone in a way that you shouldn't lustfully, that to Jesus is saying that is adultery. So like that's where the Sermon on the Mount kind of really is, to me, a very important part that you read throughout Matthew, and he goes through, basically breaks down all sorts of them, and how it's important to really look at things from a good heart posture. So that's one of the things I really took from Matthew is a Sermon on the Mount. But there's a couple other areas that I feel like are really, really, really important. So talking about heart posture, Matthew 6:19, actually 6:21, where he's talking about treasures in heaven. We'll go 19 through 21 here. So do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up yourself treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, your heart will also be. So I highlighted this one, and this one's a really, really good verse, because to me, it's basically telling you that whatever your heart is always set on, that's where your treasure is. So if you're always consumed with having more money, and money is very, very important about, it being your money and not being, and not being basically just always having a heart for always having more money, and not being generous with things like your time, money, things like that. Like that, this is basically to me telling you that if your heart is not in the right place, you're basically saving it up for here. So, and we all know things. You don't take things from here when you leave this place, when you leave Earth, when you die. You don't take any of these things. You don't take belongings. But I think where a lot of people get confused, and you'll hear a lot of pastors talk about this, is it's not telling you that it's not okay to have things. It's not okay to have possessions or money or things like that, but it's about where your heart is towards them. So, if you only live to have the, new things for yourself, that's probably not a good thing, but it's using the things that you have and being blessed with and using them towards generosity towards others and being able to give your time and energy and stuff like that. That's your heart posture. So that's one of the things that you kind of hear a lot about. So that's also something else that I kind of really took from Matthew. And something that I realized about, the book of Matthew is Matthew has got a lot of good things as far as like really hammering down on a couple things. You see a couple parables in Matthew. You see a couple other things that you can really kind of take and apply to your life. One of my favorite ones, there's a church that I went to that had a whole series about the narrow gate, and you see this in Matthew 7:13. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few will find it. Like that's huge. Like to know that, you have to, like it's a small gate and narrow road that you have to lead to, which tells you that it's not going to be easy. Like you hear the saying, the path worth taking is less traveled. The less traveled path is the one that's worth taking. And that's kind of what it's saying here is like things aren't going to be easy, but staying the focus and walking the narrow path is what's going to get you to where you need to go. So that's another great thing. So reading through Matthew, I think it's great that we start with Matthew when you look at the Gospels, because I think it keeps it kind of condensed. You kind of read it, it gets you kind of like really, into it. And I know that's one of the things that I struggled with when I first started reading the Bible or understanding the Bible was really trying to understand what I was reading. Because if you start in other areas, sometimes it gets really, really difficult. And I feel like Matthew does a really good job in his writings about really hammering down kind of like important stuff. There's never like a long drawn out part of what he's trying to portray here. So but yeah, that's what I have for Matthew. I mean, there's a lot of different things. I have some notes here. I compared Matthew to Mark, so I'll go over some of those comparisons in my next video. But this is what I'd recommend. I'd recommend just reading through, get yourself a highlighter, highlight some things that you really hit you, where you kind of really feel like what the book, the word is trying to tell you, and ask yourself questions. The Bible I have has a lot of good like side notes that kind of give you an idea of like what they might have been talking about, if there's something that you may not have been able to understand or have context of. I recommend getting something like that, a good study Bible. I also recommend really surrounding yourself with Christ followers, other people that are trying to pursue Christ. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of have a conversation and really learn more from each other, which I think is great. And those are some of the things I'd recommend. Get yourself a good Bible, get yourself one of those nice highlighters that doesn't ruin it, so it doesn't bleed through, and really just read it. I'm telling you, like the more you read the Bible, the more you read from it, the better you feel about things, the more clarity you see about things. It also teaches you about, how to pray and stuff like that. Like this is where you need to start. I would recommend starting in the Gospels, starting through Matthew, kind of reading through them. And like I said, find find some other people that are interested. Comment here on this video, let's get some interaction. Like, that's honestly where I think you're going to find the most out of it, is being able to talk through some things, because sometimes you're going to read stuff in there and you're not going to understand it. And sometimes you need somebody else to kind of give you a different perspective of what it's trying to say. So that's what I would recommend. But like I said, I really appreciate all of you guys coming along here and kind of going through this stuff with me and really kind of joining through on my journey. It's definitely been an interesting, time so far since I've really been digging in. Right now I've gone through all the Gospels pretty much, and I'm into Acts. My goal is to kind of get through everything in the New Testament, which is, starts with the Gospels and then goes to the letters to the churches and stuff like that. And so I really kind of want to get through that, and then I'm going to go back through and read the Old Testament, and probably read it all the way through. So read the Old Testament and New Testament again. But I've also, as part of my journey, been, doing things with a life group at church. Like, I recommend doing stuff like that, getting around other believers and followers. And I said in my previous video, I have a standing lunch that I do with some men of Christ at where I work, and I think it's something that's good. We get a chance to talk and pray for each other and really kind of hold each other kind of accountable to being able to be in the Word. And I think having a good accountability is great. One of the things that I do outside of this is, my wife really has been wanting me to get back in a better shape, and she started going to a thing called Fit Body Boot Camp, and she was really pressuring me about going, and I was like, you know what, I got a gym in my basement, I'm just gonna go work out down there, kind of do my thing, and that's what I'm gonna do. And she really kind of pushed me into it, and what I realized is, when I was working out down in the basement, I was only accountable for myself, and so sometimes I find myself not really push myself as hard, stuff like that. And and then eventually she got me to go to the Fit Body Boot Camp, and it's like, it's crazy, you don't think about it, but when you have someone there to really hold you accountable and really kind of push you, it makes a difference in the things you do. So like, having an accountability partner when it comes to like reading the Bible and getting into the Word is really big. And if you have a spouse, man, it's even more important. They talk about how you're one flesh with your spouse. You'll read that in the Word, and and that's a really important thing for you to make God dominion over that, dominion over your marriage, and it brings you closer together. You find yourself feeling a lot closer to your significant other and your spouse when you kind of really go after Jesus together. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend. I'd recommend some things like that. Take a read through Matthew. Let me know in the comments like what you think. Some of the things that stood out to you, what you really take from it, and if you think of what I have taken out of it so far and what I've given you so far, if you have a different idea or concept that maybe I could see it clearly, like leave it in the comments below. But other than that, like and subscribe, so that way we can continue to share this stuff with each other. We can get this word out there, because I think one of the most valuable parts of the good book is what it tells us that we're here for. And one of the things that we're here for is to share the gospel, to share the good news of God. So I recommend you guys liking, sharing the video as much as possible, so that way we can get this out there, reach as many followers or believers as possible. This is just me trying to share my journey, and in the hopes that we can also get this to other people, that maybe bring them closer, maybe start asking those questions of what it looks like. And maybe there's some people that have been on the fence, that they're not sure, and they don't want to go to a church, because if you heard my testimony, like, church wasn't a thing that a lot of people grew up with. So maybe they just need somebody just kind of sitting there just talking about it, and maybe that'll bring them a little bit closer. So that's my hope. If that's you today, like, reach out, let me know. I'll be more than happy to provide you whatever I can, based on what I have, give you as much information that I can about it, and maybe we can learn it together. So again, I really appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe below, and really looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Like I said, I'm going to go over my next chapter, which would be Mark, as I read through the Gospels. and we'll tie some things together. Again, I'll go over my notes, stuff like that. But hey, I really appreciate it, guys. Hopefully everyone has a great day and a blessed day, and make sure everything you do it for the glory of God. And that's it. Enjoy the time. Thanks, guys. Have a great one. Bye.